Okay, we are rolling. So, first of all, hello everyone. Welcome to the inaugural Rhythm Section Future Proof session, presentation, broadcast, stream, workshop. Nice to see you all here. So, for anyone who's listening back, we are broadcasting live from Defected Basement. So, big thank you to Defected for hooking this up and allowing us to use the space. And all of the future proof candidates are here from across the country. So welcome and nice to meet you all. What is future proof? So future proof, it's a scheme that evolved out of our lockdown era Patreon scheme, which is essentially existed to equip the next generation with a wide variety of skills from across the music industry, from DJing, but also covering different creative and business aspects of the industry, largely to demystify a lot of what goes on behind the scenes, and also to try to level the playing field, because it can be quite a closed industry, and if you're not involved in it can actually be quite confusing to really know how the machine works. So we wanted to try and just kind of shine a light on what goes on and share our knowledge. And what we did in the first iteration of the scheme in lockdown was to offer this to a small group of people through Patreon. And what we're in now is phase 2, which is essentially to be able to offer that for free and to be able to offer it to a wider audience and get people involved in real life. So this is the first day of that, and it's been made possible with Arts Council and PRS funding. So again, shouts to those people for helping make that happen. And also big thank you to Henry and EJ, who's just behind there, who have been coordinating the program, and it wouldn't have happened without them. So the first session, the theme is building your identity as a DJ, and we invited Alice, aka Moxie, who's a long-time friend of mine, and one of the most organized and graceful DJs, I'd say, on the circuit, who has just really got her shit together, and is really, really good at what she does. We've played together a few times. We've got another big party coming up soon, and we've shared a similar journey. Some different.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, for sure.
But also a lot of similarities, and I'm sure we've got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we have. Thank you for inviting me for the first one. And hi everyone, welcome along. Hello.
Yeah, so that's the introduction, and then I'm going to hand over to Henry to start off. So yeah, thank you all for coming, and let's get going.
Thank you, Bradley. Eloquently said. As Bradley said, this first masterclass is titled Developing Your Identity as a DJ. But also as a creative and an artist, more broadly, even though we're talking about DJing, a lot of these ideas and conversations can be applied to a broader practice. So, naturally, I think it's fair to start talking around your background, where you began, these first key moments in your career, and then perhaps explain how these became a touching stone for future Moxie, and how your identity was sort of built from the beginning.
Okay. So I started DJing. Well, yeah, I was introduced to DJing when I was 14, when I was in school. I went to an amazing school in London called Camden School for Girls. And there was a after-school DJ workshop run by a company called Bigger Fish, and I believe they still exist today. They were just so amazing. It was just such a rare opportunity for me. And to be honest, if I didn't have those after-school DJ workshops, I really don't think that I would be a DJ today, because growing up 14, that quite a long time ago now, there weren't any female DJs. There was no one to look up to. It wasn't even a path that I even considered. I didn't even think about being a DJ, not even until many, many years later, until it actually was starting to become a career path or something that I was taking seriously. So that is where it started. It was all based around UK garage. So that really is the kind of foundation of the music that I love. It's, you know, it's like groovy, soulful, vocal, and I'm a London girl, so it's very, you know, it's UK. And so for a long time I was in school and I just got the bug and I just really loved collecting records. And I, again, wasn't even thinking of being a DJ. I was also heavily into hip hop at the time. So I was just going to record shops, having that whole interaction. This is sort of pre-internet as well. And it was just like a hobby. It was just something that I did at home after school. I was really secretive about it because I'd get really nervous DJing in front of anyone. You know, I go to like house parties and there'd be all the boys like mixing, and I was just like, oh God, there's no way that I could step up, because it was all vinyl as well. So I was like, I don't want to clang a mix. And then I remembered, just like practicing and getting better and better. And I was like, wow, I'm like really like getting good at this and like really kind of understanding it. But actually, when I think about my setup back in the day, it was so terrible. I had my turntables in front of me, like here, and then I would have my computer desk over here with 2 computer speakers, and I was trying to mix on belt drive turntables with the speakers over there. I don't know how I managed to do it, but I mean, I suppose, you know, it was pretty good training. Had to like do everything in the headphones pretty much. So that's kind of like, that was my life for like a really, really long time, until my early 20s. I went to university. Dubstep started becoming like a real thing, and it was really exciting. It was this new genre of music in London, and that was the scene that I essentially came up with. Loads of parties, loads of raves all around here in Shoreditch. Very, very different back then. Shoreditch looked like completely different. There was just these amazing warehouses that Rinse would put on, like Rinse FM. Their parties were called Forward. You had Plastic People around the corner. We also used to work in that club for a bit as well. So I was really like just in this environment around loads of people that were in music. I also worked with Benji B for a really long time. I worked with him on his Club Night Deviation. Was helping him with his radio show, and that was a massive influence for me as well. So I had all the dubstep stuff going on, had like the Benji world going on. Was like a massive fan of Marianne Hobbs. And then I just started playing more and more raves. And you mentioned like moments where, you know, your career, you look back and you think, wow, that was a moment. And I suppose when things felt really special was playing this really iconic rave called DMZ, and I was the first ever woman to play there twice for 10 years until Marianne Hobbs played the 10-year anniversary. So that's where people started to know me from when I started to play out. Around this time, NTS was going as well. And so that really, NTS is definitely like a key part of my identity. And just, it's to be honest, it's been quite like a long road getting to this point, because I don't make music. I'm not a producer. People know me for being a DJ. And so I've really like gained a lot of followers from radio and from having a label. And so over the years, there definitely have been more like key moments. But when I think back to kind of coming up, that definitely playing that rave and being in an environment around all those sorts of people is part of my kind of foundation, really.
Totally, that's amazing. Particularly being the first woman to play the DMZ party, big achievement.
There were just no women. This is the thing. There really just weren't any women around. So I don't even think it was a conscious decision from them not choosing women to play. There just weren't even women. And it's honestly amazing how different it is now. I get so excited seeing all these women come through and these young girls and stuff. Like, it's so great. I'm just so happy. That's all I've ever wanted. Just, you know, even just thinking back like all those years ago, which might even be 10. No, my God, I need to figure out when that rave was actually. But yeah, maybe even coming up to 10 years.
I think more than 10 years. It's almost 2023, Mox.
Oh God, I feel so old.
Don't remind us. Amazing. And you still have all the dubstep records hiding away?
Yeah, I absolutely would never sell any of them. In lockdown, you know, obviously we all had like some time on our hands, and I thought, right, I am going to go through all my records. And that was my thing. As Bradley mentioned, I wanted to organize everything. I wanted to tidy everything up, clear it all out. And I went through all of my records, but if there's one section that I would never sell, it's my dubstep section, especially all the DMZ records, because really it's the sentimental value that they hold for me and all the memories of being in those parties as well. But you know, this is the thing, is that I was part of that scene, and this is how quickly the industry can change. And I suppose a good thing is that, because even though I was part of the dubstep scene, I also was able to kind of maneuver, because I didn't strictly play dubstep. I was also playing a lot of stuff similar to Hessel Audio and kind of verging into techno, but still kind of bassy in UK and around 140. But when that scene died, you know, kind of just fizzled out, as music naturally does. I mean, we're having a cycle now where it's all coming back, you know, every 10 years, that's what people say. I was able to, you know, naturally I was also evolving as a person and a DJ to kind of like move into new territory. And I was also discovering loads of like really underground house music and techno. So in a way, it's, I don't know, not being a producer has kind of also been a benefit, because I've been able to just kind of be a part of like so many other sort of sounds and maneuver into a new scene, I suppose.
Do you think that's really important for today's generation of artists to stay versatile, or is it possible to?
I mean, I don't know. I think I think honestly, you've just got to do what feels right and what feels natural for you. Sometimes the fact that I played different styles kind of was a hindrance, because people didn't know where to place me. And that was kind of frustrating. Also, coming out of the bass scene, for a really long time, people just thought I was this UK bass girl, and people in Europe they didn't get it. And so I really, really had to put the work in. I had to be really strict about the lineups that I did. And I think anyone that's going to go into a new scene, I mean, look at Scream, you know, being from dubstep, and now he's like tech house and that kind of world. And that, even for him, you know, you have to say no a lot of the time. You have to say no to loads of shows, really just stand your ground and be like, no, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to go. And I had that for a long time, but I didn't do full-time DJing for ages though, you know. And I think that's another thing. If you want to do this, wait until that last possible moment. You never want to rely on gigs for the sake of money. You only want to do them if you're really like, yeah, I want to do that show. That feels right. Because once you start taking shows for money, then, you know, you just start losing control over your path, really. I think it really needs to come down to what you want to do and like where you want to be. And actually sometimes like just taking a longer time to get there can actually be a better thing. Because honestly, like music has just changed so much. Like I see people like years ago that were so big, and then now they're just, either they've decided to retire, or they're kind of just, you know, like from dubstep, for example, people just don't want to book them anymore. They're just not interested. And it's like heartbreaking, because people are super talented. Yeah.
I feel you on that. Yeah, incredible. Was there a certain point or a time or a period where there was meditation on that idea, where you sort of had to plan and sit back and be like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to be?
Yeah, I think that transition really is the first time that I started having to think like, okay, I'm going to have to be really tactical. And I started working with management around that time as well. And I did my club night. I was already doing these compilations called Moxie Presents that were an extension of my radio show, and I would put them up on SoundCloud, and I curated the whole thing, and I like spoke to everyone, and like it was a real fun project. But it was kind of like me starting a label without knowing that I was starting a label. And so I did these compilations. Well, the first one on my own, put it up on SoundCloud, you know, emailed, like had a whole list of all the press people to email. Like there were loads of blogs around that time that were popping off, and I was like, I'm going to, you know, send everything direct to them. Had a DJ mail out, you know, and then I was doing it on radio, and then I had people on the show doing mixes. Like I did a whole press plan. Like, but also actually when I was younger, I've had quite a few jobs in music as well. And when I was 18, I did a summer working for free in a music PR company called Salt, and that's where I met like quite a few people as well, just in music, from like going out. And that again, that really like taught me a lot of like how to do PR for a campaign. But I feel like I've trailed off. I was trying to remember the point that I was making. What was the question again?
I don't remember.
Oh,
No, was there a point of meditation?
yeah. So there was the point of like being conscious about like having a plan. So yeah, coming out of that, the bass scene, and having to be like, right, where do I want to go? Who do I want to play with? Saying no to promoters, and like, how do I get into like certain clubs? And so with my club night on Loop, which was the extension of the label, that's what I was mentioning, the compilations, I wanted to have a night where I could place myself, and I could also do all the bookings. So I could say like, hey, like, actually, these are all the people that I want to play with, and like, this is how I want you to see me. And I also wanted to have it as a platform to try and book people that I thought were really great, and try and book women. Not that there were that many of them, but I would try like anyone that was in the scene to try and like, you know, get them on the nights as well. And I started doing those nights at Pickle Factory here in London, and then planned a sort of like European UK tour. So we would do a night in Edinburgh and Scotland. We did one in Paris. We did one in Lyon in France. And that was kind of just an example of being like, this is how I want you to view me, you know, rather than being like, oh, we're going to put you on this space stage again. So I had like 2 years of like that transitional thing. And then it worked, you know, and just saying no to a lot of stuff as well.
In terms of, I guess, shaping your identity, but also not rushing it, I think it was really insightful what you said about just not saying yes to everything, certainly when you're starting out, so that you kind of have a control over your destiny, so to speak.
It's so important.
But I think it's also interesting I'd be interested to hear your thoughts about working with agents and managers, because I think that's also something that people often want to rush into.
Yeah, they really do.
And I think, I mean, agent is, I guess, a slightly different role in that they're bringing options and you're kind of like saying yes or no. But specifically with management, because I didn't work with management until like a couple of years ago, and I think if people do that very soon, they end up not really steering their own ship. And
but also, how are they paying for it? You know, they're taking 20%.
Yeah. But tell us a bit about your journey with management and agents.
Okay.
How it relates back to your own identity.
Yeah, I think you just got to be careful with all of these decisions. I think, you know, sometimes I actually think you can do a lot of bookings on your own. I know a lot of people that have a fake email, but they're controlling. And
big tip.
Yeah. But, you know, perception is everything sometimes. And, you know, just, it's kind of just, if you can kind of, you know, you can kind of ask the questions that you wouldn't necessarily ask as, you know, me as Moxie, I wouldn't ask those questions, but, you know, my manager or my agent, Amanda, would. And so, you know, you can phrase stuff and you can be a bit more direct. You know, I think it's important not to be rude, be polite if you're going to do that. But also, I think a tip, if you ever are going to do that, always wait to see what they come with. If they say we want to book you, be like, what's the budget? Don't ever say, oh, well, they're going to play out for this amount of money. Say, you know, what is the budget? How many people are going to be attending? You try and hit past people that have been playing there. Try and like gauge the kind of the vibe of the night. But I think it really is about, you know, if you get to that point and you are wanting to have an agent, it's speaking to different people, see how they view you, see how they would position you over the next 2 years. Also do some research of places, clubs that you want to play at. Look at your peers or people that you look up to and think, okay, well, you know, there's like this amazing little club that I keep hearing about. And I do that still to this day. I have loads of lists. And so I always have like a list of like all the festivals that I want to play, all the clubs that I want to play. I speak to the drivers that pick me up and I'm like, so what are the things that you're going to? And they're like, oh, I went to this like amazing festival here and I took someone to here. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then I add that to the list and I make a note with my agent, because otherwise sometimes you can just be in a bit of like a echo chamber of doing the same kind of things. And it's important to like tap into other stuff that's going on. But I have had a few agents over the years, because sometimes, you know, people move around to different agencies, or I've never like lost an agent because I've been fired or anything like that. It's just you know, like how things happen with Matt, you know, when he had to move to Amsterdam and everything. And my manager I've had for 7 years, Chris, he's been really great. Looks after a bunch of people. We're actually on the same management firm, aren't we? I remember when you came to talk to me about wanting to have a manager, and we after NTS or something, we were in Dorset, weren't we? But again, I think you need to have that connection with someone. You need to make sure that they get what you do, and that they're not all about the money, and it's about like the bigger picture. And, you know, but also ask yourself, like, what do you want to do? Like, where do you want to go with this? Do you have goals as well? And like, think big. I always do another list. I always do a list at the end of the year as well of all the things that I'm really proud of, because it can be hard to forget stuff. And then I look back on it and I'm like, oh yeah, I did that. That's actually, I forgot I did that. That was a milestone. And then as well as having a list of things I'm proud of, I've always got a list of things that I really want to strive for. And then when you get there, sometimes you think, well, I didn't do that, but actually I ended up doing this thing, which was kind of cooler. And I just think it's, just think like, you know, where do you want to go? But yeah, your team definitely, those are the people that reflect you. And it's good to have people that are I think music people as well, you know, and that but also have strategy, and they've got your back, and they're respected within the industry as well. That's the good thing with our management company, is that a lot of people really respect the managers that are there because they're nice to work with, and they're also music heads.
It's all very important, isn't it? Really interested to hear more about the self-driven side of things, maybe pre-management or during management, stuff that comes from you and controlling. Like you said, you've got this list of lists of different opportunities and festivals and clubs you want to do. With that in mind, how do you use the internet and technology to create that for yourself or put that word out? How do you project those dreams, and from a self-driven perspective?
I don't know. I suppose it's all part of the bigger picture. I think, I don't know. Yeah, I suppose it's hard. You can't really like necessarily always like put stuff like out there. But I think, okay, so say if you're like gearing towards doing an essential mix or something like that, or a mix for a resident advisor, like often some of those things are about profile. And again, those things, I think it's good not to just like rush into them. I've got a friend who is got like a really great following, and like she's like real like buzzy, everyone's like really excited about her, and she's been killing it. But you know, even like quite early into her career, she's had quite a fast trajectory. And like even really early on, BBC were like, we want to do an essential mix, we want to do this, and she's just like, you know what, no, I don't want to do that yet, because also like your sound can evolve and like you can change. And I think those things will come around. If that's how you're thinking about it, as this like a real like career, like I'm going to be a DJ. I love music. That's the main thing I'd always say, like be obsessed with music, like love it. You know, when I find a track and I'm looking for it for a club show or for radio, to sign to the label, I always think that's a really important thing. Like, does this track move you? Are you like really obsessed with it and you cannot wait to play it out? And I think that's always like a good thing to stand by.
Great. Do you do, I know Bradley's really good at this. I know you are as well, so I'm just going to ask anyway. How much work do you put into your social media?
Okay, so I figured out, I know the times that I like to post. I like to post early in the morning. I like to post in the evening, because when posts, okay, so for example, I'm from the UK, so I've got like a big UK following. If I put something on in the morning, a lot of people are going to be looking at that. And so therefore, the more people that interact with it, then the more people will see it in your feed. And so that's what I've kind of figured out. Or sometimes the evening people are scrolling through, same kind of thing. And, you know, I used to get kind of stressed out with having to do like a post when I sit there and be like, what am I going to say? I don't know what to say. Like, oh God, oh wait, this or that. And so what I do, if I know I've got something important to announce, I will write it the night before, and I'll do it on my notes on my phone or my laptop or whatever. And I'll write the whole thing out, including like if I'm like atting you or something, I'll like get all the ats and everything and then look how it is and be like, okay. And then the next morning when I go to do the post, I put it on there. And if I think actually this doesn't quite feel right, let me switch it up a bit, then I'll switch it up. But at least I've got like the main body of what I want to say. So I'm not like wasting half an hour. Because I think which is even so stupid when you think about it, like imagine that, like wasting, up to like 20 minutes or something on an Instagram post. But it's honestly, it can happen if it's something important. You want to get it right.
People get paid big money to do this.
Yeah, and say if you've got a sponsored post or something, like with a brand, just even if it's a few lines, like just do it the night before, because then at least when you look at it, you've got a bit of time to think about it. That's what I do. It's been working for me, and it's less stressful, and especially if I've got a bunch of things that I have to post. But I don't know, I go in and out of, love and hate relationship with Instagram. Sometimes I'm just hate it. I want to get off it. You feel a bit low, or like you're not doing enough, and then you see everyone that's like, I'm doing everything, and you're like, oh God, and you're like, oh God, I didn't even play out this weekend. Should I be playing out? You're like, no, Alice, it's your weekend off. So yeah, I try not to be on it too much, but then sometimes it just gets sucked in. But that's again why I try and like plan what I want to do, so I can try and be in and out.
Are you planning content in a way that you're thinking about the algorithm, or is it just straight up, this is what I need?
Yeah, because of the time I post. Yeah.
Not the actual content itself.
Are
you posting faces more often because?
Yeah, I mean sometimes. Yeah, sometimes picture of you is going to probably get more traction, but then also I think you just got to like not take it personally if you put a flyer up and then it doesn't get as many likes, because certain things are just not going to get as many likes. But you know what? Whatever. Like, just if you need to put it up, then just put it up and don't overthink it. Like, of course, something with your face on it where you look nice, people are going to interact with it more because that's what they want to see. But I don't know, it doesn't always have to be about that. It can just be about things in your life, or, I think it's like a representation. It's like a portfolio of you, especially if you're using it as, like, for me, like my Moxie account. It's, if someone's coming to book me, or they're looking at me, or they just want to check me out, it's like, well, that's what are you kind of presenting to the world.
I can barely remember what it was like before Instagram in DJ world. Because I guess when I started DJing, there was no Instagram, but there was Facebook.
Of course, yeah.
MySpace,
yeah.
top 6.
I think even the beginning of Instagram, all the dodgy filters.
Top 8. Yeah, quite.
Oh God, yeah. Just all the just everyone over filtering everything all the time. It's trying to make it look like a Polaroid. It just looks terrible.
Do you think it's leveled the playing field or made it more competitive? The kind of, I guess, just social media in our particular niche of the entertainment industry.
It is crazy how it is actually such an integral part. I was going to compare Helena Hauff, but I think Helena Hauff is like probably one of a handful of DJs that don't have an Instagram account and they can get away with it. But it is, God, I hate to say it, but it kind of is actually like a big part of what we do. And yeah, it is, I don't know. Yeah, you kind of have to kind of go with it.
I guess, playing 2 records, in concession isn't that hard. So really, I guess part of the allure, of why one person gets booked over another is, I guess, your perceived personality, whether that is merely an illusion or it's actually a real representation. So it's a funny one, isn't it? I totally get how it's can be a really toxic place and an unhealthy addiction. But it's you're opening the world, you're opening the door for people to kind of, I guess, see a bit about who you are.
Yeah, and I think some people can be really savvy and tactical with it, and they can put like loads of like pictures up of themselves, and maybe not wearing many clothes and that kind of stuff. But then you got to think, if that's how you want to present yourself, then you're only going to attract a certain following. And it's like, is that the following that you want? If that is the following you want, then cool. But if not, like, consider what you post up. Like, think about, what do you like to see? Like, what do you enjoy about what people post? And I think keep it authentic, keep it honest, And people kind of, I think they want to have a little snapshot into your personality. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to give everything away, but I think being honest and like writing, that's another thing. When I write, I try and think about how I want to write rather than, you know, some people are like, that was the most amazing show, that was the best gig. You know, sometimes things just sound so generic, and that's why I like to think about the stuff the night before, so that I'm not just, you know, writing any kind of garbage on there or whatever, because sometimes you're like, oh, I just got to get it up, and it's like, no, like take a moment, like think about it, what do you want to say?
Wonderful. It's a mind.
But I hate that we even have to have this conversation, to be honest. Like, I really hate it.
Yeah, no, it is painful, but it is so important. Let's pivot then. Just on a more like technical level, within DJing, over the years you've mixed a whole bunch of different genres. A lot of different genres have different types of mixing associated to them. You know, garage is a lot different to like deep house or like, you know, more like rolling techno. How have these technical aspects come into your life, and have you been able to use these techniques in different settings to like really translate an idea you have, or is it, am I talking garbage?
No, I think you know, like how I said, growing up when I was younger, I was into garage, and so watching people like EZ, you know, like what a master, like just so incredible technically, and just little things of like, you know, like cutting into tunes and like knowing when to pull something out and then pull something in. Like that's definitely part of my identity and like how I like to mix. That's kind of why I try and steer away from rotary mixes, which are more about the blends and for like house and disco. But then also I do quite like using an Allen and Heath mixer, because again, I do quite like blending, you know, and just like bringing things in like really gently and just making it really nice and smooth. And yeah, because I suppose I do play different genres, although I do like to see them all under the umbrella of underground, like electronic dance music within the realms of house and techno. I mean, they're so broad, but that's, you know, that's kind of like what I play really. But, you know, a little bit of garage maybe like here and there, but not a lot. Depends where it is. But I think, I think the people that I've grown up watching, they've definitely influenced me and how I like to play. But I think it's like a feeling sometimes of tracks, and that comes from experience of like knowing when to bring things in, knowing when to take them out. And that, yeah, for me has come from just like years of being in clubs and like reading rooms and knowing like what to do, and also trying stuff out. Like, you know, I had a couple mixes on the weekend and I was like, yo, not going to do that again. I was like, that didn't quite work. But then I did something else and I was like, that was sick. Okay, remember that one. I think it's good to take a risk as well. Just, you know, figure things out on the fly when you're in front of a crowd, because sometimes if you're feeding off that energy with people, then you're like, right, fuck it, I'm just going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then when it works, it's really, really good. And I think it's important to like step out of your comfort zone as well.
Totally. And there's only one way to find out, isn't there? How much work do you put in behind the scenes with there's obviously records, but probably more on a digital library. Are you organizing? Are you playlisting? Is it, are you cue pointing?
Wait till you see Alice's box.
No, I actually, I do need to actually figure out a new way of like how I archive my music. But I have everything. So digitally speaking, I have everything that is in iTunes, and it feeds through into Recordbox. And then in Recordbox, I have like a gig. I have like a gig folder, and so like every single gig, even if there might be some similar playlists to the gig from the week before, I still go through and make a new playlist, because I realized actually that sometimes you can think, oh yeah, I know all the tunes, it's fine. But then you go to play the gig and you're like, oh, actually, God, wait, what do I have in here again? But if you physically go through everything and you edit it and filter it for that set, the process of that, you're remembering all the tracks that you're putting aside. And then you might think, oh wait, there's that other track and there's another one. But generally, like with my folder, what I've been kind of doing, I will always have a percussive folder that is just like loads of kind of percussive-y, tooly moments that you can just, that are also a bit of a get out of jail free card, because if you're in a bit of a sticky moment, you just think, oh God, actually, I don't quite know what to play, but I can just put on this percussive roller and then I can kind of go anywhere from that. So I'll have that. I'll have, big energy moments, like kind of groovy tunes, deeper, more like driving tracks. And so what I've realized, the key for me, because I used to get kind of anxious before I play out, because I think, oh, what is the situation? What's the scenario I'm going into? Like, what is it going to be? And I've realized it, for me, it is really in the prep, because when you step on stage and you're going to play, you want to really understand, like, how does your brain work when you're standing there and you're looking at the crowd and you're looking at digital files, which sometimes can just be a bit overwhelming because there is so much music. And you're like, right, where is my brain going to go to right now? And you're looking at the room and you're thinking, oh, really, I'm going to want a track that's got a bit more of like a vibe. It's a bit groovy. It's around 130. Okay, let me go to my groovy 130 folder. Okay, or just a groovy folder, and it will be kind of housey, techie house tracks. And then if I want something that's a bit more like left field, and I kind of want a bit of a weirder moment right now, I want to kind of just take it off for a sec, then I'll go, oh, well, I've got that folder, and there might only be 5 tracks in there. But I'm like, yeah, brilliant, that one, that's going to go with that. And also just having a mix at home before, if you have time, like, because then you're going to familiarize yourself with like all of those playlists, those tracks, work out some blends. If you're traveling on the train, like, just get your tunes, like, go through them and just think like what things can go together. Especially if I have like a really high stakes big show, then I will figure out a few little blends, maybe of like 4 tracks, like here and there. And then I know that when I go to play, the whole set is like, it's all kind of feeding off the vibe and everything. But I'll be like, oh, you know what? I got that sick blend. Let me go to that. And then you do it. And it is so satisfying when you're just like, yes, like, because you're able to just be really snappy with the mix because you've got all your tunes lined up, especially if there's like 5,000 people in front of you and you're like, okay, you need to bring it. You don't have time to be like, oh, what is the room saying? You're like, no, bring it, And I also, I will sometimes plan the first like 3 tunes. I might get there and it be completely wrong, and I'll be like, no, that wasn't right. But if it's right, then you can kind of just settle in, do that first mix, and then you're like, as you're doing it, then you're like, okay, let me see what the room is saying. What can I do? So I think actually it really is in the prep, because you don't want to be like overthinking it too much and worrying about what you're playing and stuff, and thinking you want to be really relaxed and like know where all your music is, know where you want to go.
And also be inspired and know where the new music is and be excited to play some new.
Oh yeah, I always have a new folder, and I'll always I want to play like all of the tracks from that folder.
Where do you find new music?
Okay, so there's a few ways. Obviously Bandcamp is amazing, really, really great. Just sometimes like, you might go to a certain track and then you see what they suggest at the bottom. Also, someone told me about this thing, which sometimes I don't really do because it could be, a bit hit and miss, but you can click onto other people's collections sometimes. So
I do that all the time.
Yeah, like sometimes, yeah, like if there's a track where you're like, this track is wicked, like, so you just go and you can like, I don't know, sometimes it's just potluck, like okay, who else has bought this? I'll go on that icon and you look at it and you can see their past collection and you scroll through and sometimes you think, I don't know, and then other times you're like, wow, I found this one track, and like, how would you have got there? You wouldn't have got there. And I don't know, for me, I do radio, we play out, I'm all about sharing the music. But then, so that there's that element, but then also, if you like buying records or you use Discogs, which is a really great record, like vinyl platform where people sell and buy loads of records. It's a really good trick that someone told me about. So again, go for records that you really love, that you're like, this is my like killer tune. And they have a section on the right-hand side and it says lists. And people, they make these lists, like people on Discogs, I do lists of all their favorite tunes, and they'll
dark breakbeat midnight.
Yes, they'll like theme it, and then if the track that you love has been themed and is put in that theme of that list, then there's a good chance that there might be a bunch of other stuff which you really like. And a lot of it is only going to be on vinyl. So not a lot of people are going to have it. And then also, if they don't, then at least you can, like, if it's on digital, then you're like, oh, okay, great. Well, let me go and find it. Let's go to the label. Let's go to the back catalogue. Let's go and see what else they've done. Oh, there's another artist on there that I really like. What else have they done? You know, and so sometimes, obviously, you know, like you say, you end up having about 50 tabs, like, all open, and you're like, we can go here, and it's like a spider diagram. You're like, but I could go there and then here and then, oh my God. And like, you know, so it can, again, be quite overwhelming, but it's great when you find those gems that no one has, and you've spent sometimes hours, but you're like, this was worth it. No one has this record. I love it. I'm going to buy it, going to play it out.
I think another nice tip for people who were, you know, starting out DJing and building, I guess, like a bank of exclusive music that maybe no one else has, which is always a nice thing to do, to be able to play something that no one's heard before. Perhaps it's really obvious, but if you follow, say, a particular producer or a new label, just send them a message. Certainly before I started my own label, and when I was doing NTS in the early days, I just started a lot of relationships with people running small labels who I really admired, and just asked them to send you a promo. Ask them if they've got anything coming up that they might want you to play on the radio, or you're going to play a gig next week, or da-da-da-da-da. And yeah, being on promo lists is a huge, I guess,
It's quite a
channel for getting music. It can be kind of overwhelming, you know, when you've been doing this for a while. Advance apologies to anyone who's ever sent me a demo that I just haven't listened to. But you build up your own network of, I guess, like, trusted confidants, and if you make those relationships early in your journey with people who are on a similar kind of trajectory and level to you, then you're kind of supporting each other and lifting each other up, and it's also just sick to get music that no one else has. So that's maybe worth mentioning.
Yeah. But you know what, I was just on that, like, tip of just, like, searching for music. I just really think that when you consider your identity, it really is just about the music that you play. You know, I think that is the thing that, like, if you want to stand out against anyone else, like, anyone can really learn how to DJ. Once you get it down, you're like, okay. But it's really, like, how you play, like how the music you choose to play and how you play it, like that really is just, like, I think that is going to form your identity. That is what will make you different from anyone else. Like, really just be authentic, be you, and play stuff that you really have a connection to and that you think is worth supporting.
I think at the end of the day, DJs are just curators, really, of the room, the club.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely are. You know, we don't make music. This is our identity. Obviously, we have, like, different parts of our worlds and our brand, but really it's like that is our identity, is like what we choose to play, what we play on the radio, like you say, what we curate for the label and all that kind of stuff.
And just having that urge to share it, you know. That was from the first radio show I did in 2009. It was always really about just not just finding it, but being able to, like, broadcast it, like really, really just shout about it. And it was this incessant urge I had since I can remember, since I was making tapes on my Fisher Price.
Yes, that's what you were just.
Recorder.
That's what was making me think of.
9
And mix
It's
it.
like exchanging CDs and mini discs.
I was selling CDRs in school I must have been like 11 years old, because my dad was one of the first people to get a CD writer, and I was selling, like, mixtapes for like £2. I've been at this a while.
Wow. Well, that actually leads beautifully into the final question I have, and that is, how do you see your identity within your community around you, whether that's your music community, your professional community, personal circles, and how important is that to you and for the future?
I suppose for me, just from, like, really early on, I've just always really wanted to support women, just because when I was younger, when I was going to the clubs when I was 16, when I was going to hip hop parties, there really just were no DJs. There was this one DJ, Sarah Love, that I like admired greatly. And so for me, for a really long time, it was like, okay, I need to put myself like at the forefront, because I think that, you know, when someone sees themselves in a role, then they realize that they can aspire to do that, or they can think, oh my God, like I never thought I could do that. Like, well, now I've seen this woman, and actually that's really inspiring. And it's like with me and three of my friends, that we have this like group, and we play together at really selective shows, myself, Saoirse, Shanti Celeste and Peach. And that has just come from friendship. And when we play those shows, we get so many people that come up to us and they're like, oh my God, like 4 women playing together. This is amazing. Like, this is so sick. Like, I love it. Especially like some older fans that will, you know, again, like my generation, that I'll just say, like, I've never seen this. Like, we never would have had this 10 years ago. And so I think for a really long time, like, that was my thing, was like really just trying to bring women through. And like, that's what I've tried to do with my radio show. I really try my best with the label, although I think female producers is like harder because there's just not that many coming through quite yet. But there are some really exciting young talents, but there's a lot more DJs, I think, than producers. So I'm definitely like always trying to, like, you know, fill those spots on the label. But yeah, and then I think past that is just diversity. It's just like opening up everything. You know, you want everyone to feel like welcome, and music is a whole spectrum. And especially if you think about where dance music comes from, you know, like, people should all be represented. You think about all the amazing club nights that happened in Chicago and New York and Detroit, and at least that's the music that we play. So I think just trying to like help bring people through, keep things diverse, and have it more represented for everyone, because, you know, it's fun to have a party with loads of different types of people and like different energies, and that's what I find like exciting, and that's what I want to see. So that's what I'm trying to help do.
Incredible. Do you have anything to add to that, Bradley?
From my perspective, or to comment on what Moxie said?
From your perspective.
From my perspective, well, I mean, I kind of said it when it in my comment before about just having this urge to share something. But I guess as you progress in your career, I mean, for a start, I never really considered this a career. You know, I studied fine art. I wanted to be a painter, and this music was just a thing I did that was really fun, and it became something. Not to say that there was no dedication or direction or hard work put in. I just really, it just didn't seem like a viable option. It was just really, this was my hobby, you know. But then as you become, I guess, recognized, and it becomes like an actual career path, there's certain responsibilities that maybe you didn't even consider when you were just putting on a party in a pool hall with some friends. So there was this transition point for me in the first lockdown, when I suddenly realized like I wasn't one of the young ones anymore. And because for ages I just felt like the new kid on the block. And then there was this, I guess, moment where there was a lot of time for reflection, and you realize like, oh, I've been doing this for a while, and there's kids coming up now who were like 10 years old when I started the label. Do you know what I mean? It's like, this is just nuts. So, and then there was also a lot of other things going on around that time with regards to representation of women and a kind of gender balance with regards to BLM and everything that brought up, and this, just the injustices and the inequality of opportunities. So for me, it was the reason the reason I kind of started this Patreon scheme was to, we're not going to change the world with one, online program, but it's a step in the right direction. And it was thinking about what we can do that's going to, level that playing field a bit, open some doors where they weren't open, give some people opportunities that they perhaps wouldn't have had. And that was, I guess that was my contribution to this problem, because what I realized from starting off in the music industry, obviously from like a grassroots level, was that it was this amazing, diverse place where I felt I didn't feel like I was the only one. You know, I studied fine art, and it's not the most diverse place, should we say? But then I found music and was like, wow, this is my people. This is my, you know, I really feel at home here. But then as you climb up this ladder, up from the, you know, the DJ at the bottom of the lineup to the person who's doing the residency to the person who's planning the festivals and having these conversations with management and with, you know, owners and boards of executives, suddenly you're the only one in the room again. And this really diverse, beautiful, you know, scene, you realize it's actually not really diverse or representative at all. So I've managed to get to a certain point in this, but my kind of thought at that point was, how can I kind of do something to try and diversify it from the top to the bottom, and this is what I managed. One step in the right direction. I don't think anyone's going to change the world with one idea, and I very much doubt this will change the world. But yeah, that's kind of something that I'm interested to like level out.
But can I just say something also, Bradley? What is really great that you do with Rhythm Section is that you have this really young team of people around you. And, you know, I think it is really important to try and bring the next generation through. So as much as like trying to make a change in diversity, you also are like, hey, come through. Like, and I think that is really integral, is to open doors up. If just even people like, you know, that of this level that are like can be in the same room. And yeah, I've always respected that about what you've done with the label and everything. You know, you've got a team, got a business. It's
I have
cool.
a really good team, and sometimes people are like, how do you do all this? I'm like, I don't do it all. Like, there's a really good team. Shouts to Emily, shouts to Henry, shouts to the other Emily, Amelia, Marley, Aisha, Rose. We've got a really good team, and yeah, I guess part of that, it makes it fun and interesting and fresh. But like you say, it's also bringing new ideas and new blood and different perspectives. Because yeah, I guess it's a funny one, isn't it? Because so much of what we do is like deemed to be our like taste and our curatorial expertise. But really, you have to. It's not down to any one person. It's your network. It's the people you surround yourself with. It's the people that you meet along the way. And it's the influences that you allow in, and I guess having good people around you is really, really important. And I've been lucky enough to build a really amazing people around me. So yeah, shouts to them all.
A lovely segue to the conclusion of this part of the talk. Yeah, just want to reiterate that community building is so important, and like Moxie and Bradley have both said, it's the people around you that make you what you are, and just embracing all that, sharing music, sharing good times.
Can I also just say something as well? NTS, I just have to big up NTS, because really NTS, when we talk about community, is our community, and they have supported both of us so much. I've been with them coming up to like 13 years next year. And in the same respect that you have your team of people, like you've just given them the space to also just like to grow and to learn with you as you're building Rhythm Section. And NTS have done that with us. They've just like given us free reign to just like be who we want to be, and like put on like really great parties, and pretty much all the original people that have worked there from day one still work there. And again, community, I always feel that whenever I go into Gillett Square to do my show. It's London, and it's so authentic. Like you could never buy that, because where that is grown from, that is, you know, Femi, who started NTS, it's come from him, it's his vision, and that's why it's so pure, and that's why people really love it, and that's why I love it, and that is why I will always fly the flag for NTS. And yeah, that I'm just realized that I hadn't quite touched on that, and you said community. I was like, wait, we just need a moment for NTS. You know, they're big parts of our career and life.
Huge.
Everything.
And it's also beautiful to see a lot of similar things pop up in different cities, you know? Because, and I don't think it's competition. I don't think NTS are like, see Skylab in Melbourne or Refuge in Berlin and think the lot in New York, kiosk in Belgium. There's so many, but I think it's it helps galvanize a community. And I'm sure you're all from different parts of the UK, and there's probably similar things in your respective towns that kind of help do the same thing. And there's room for more, you know. There's no kind of, I think one nice thing about our level of, or our niche within the music community is it's not very, maybe competitive in a positive sense, but it doesn't feel ever competitive in a kind of people are at each other's throats kind of way. It feels cooperative for the most part, certainly in my experience. And there's enough people to go around. There's enough dancers, there's enough listeners, there's enough people wanting to engage in something and create a momentum. And I think that's something to really remember when you're, you know, building your own communities and platforms and labels and club nights, that you're all in it together. And we're lucky for that to be the case in London, because in some smaller towns where there's maybe actually not quite enough people to go around, it can be quite cutthroat. But not so much in this city, and that I think is a really nice thing about it.
Wonderful. And on that note, thank you very much for listening. For all those listening at home, you've been tuned into the very first rhythm section Future Proof Masterclass with Moxie and Bradley Zero.
And Henry.
That's right.
AKA Roy Mills.
Shout out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.